Culture.
Hello.
Community.
They make people feel safe, but they make people comfortable.
We treat everybody like a family.
Tradition.
I'm just really happy to just be a part of it and be able to pass it on.
The Bay Area Asian American and Pacific Islander communities hold strong.
Looking to the past for lessons and creating the way forward for future generations.
I know that a lot of young APIs are looking at me as an example, and so it's truly meaningful.
I belong. I made it.
Hello and welcome to Roots and Resilience, CBS News Bay Area's celebration of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I'm Ryan Yamamoto.
And I'm Betty Yu. Our stories truly do define us, and we know the Bay Area is rich with AAPI cultures. Often they are rooted in family, history, and traditions.
And those traditions are often taught, passed down, and cherished over generations. And I recently had a chance to meet a San Francisco woman who is one of a kind in San Francisco's Chinatown, making sure her family's culture lives on through sips of tea and through beautiful music.
The sound of tradition echoes long before class is set to begin. Where up the stairs and into a tiny attic studio, practice turns into a lesson as Fang Yi seamlessly begins class, teaching the art of the guzhong, a 21-string instrument that began in ancient China.
More than 2,500 years ago, started the Qing dynasty.
For Yi, she is the only instructor in San Francisco's Chinatown, keeping the art alive.
Very deep. Yeah, from your heart.
Developing more than just a following.
See, I have muscles here, and then I have muscles here too.
Her hands and fingers becoming an extension of her heart, channeling more than just music, but a mood.
Make the sounds like mountains, like rivers, like the girl crying.
Listen as she plays the sadness of that young girl.
And that was
Crying.
And it's those feelings that attracted 13-year-old Angel Yi and Yvonne Wu. That's video of Angel performing at a social club a few months ago, fierce on stage, but shy in person.
I remember the audience really motivated me. So after I was done, I heard so much clapping and cheering.
And when Fang Yi is not teaching, she is literally downstairs from her music studio, running her tiny tea shop.
What kind of tea is that?
It's the Iron Goddess.
Where, much like her music, she finds calm in her culture.
The different tea I use in a different way. So different weather or different feeling to make it. It's like play the music, also from your heart.
Her heart always leading her back to her Chinese heritage.
So my parents feel surprised. So why the little girl like the old stuff? Yeah, so that's why.
You have an old soul.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. 眼神.
An old soul teaching a new generation to tell stories through music, learning not to only hear, but to feel tradition.
Much of the AAPI community in the Bay Area is made up of immigrants and the sons and daughters of immigrants. That includes Oakland's Mayor Sheng Tao. She's the first Hmong American mayor of a major U.S. city. She's the daughter of Laotian refugees, and she's talked about her humble beginnings. We asked what AAPI Heritage Month means to her and who she draws her inspiration from.
It's truly my mom. She's actually my driving factor when we talk about resiliency, and not just that, but making sure that we persevere no matter what situation we are in. When we talk about the umbrella of API and what that means, and there's so many different struggles that we all go through. I'm Southeast Asian, and so that struggle is completely different from East Asian and South Asians. To me, it is truly about representation.
More Asian Americans are also earning leadership roles in Bay Area law enforcement. Len Ramirez rode along with East Palo Alto's new police chief, who worked his way up through the ranks.
This is it, man. I've been here.
East Palo Alto's new chief of police walks the streets of the city like a local because he is one.
You know that feeling when you pull into town and you feel like you're home? That's East Palo Alto.
And to Chief Jeff Liu, what makes it so are the people willing to join him to make the city better and safer.
Hello. Thank you so much.
And it doesn't matter to him if they own a home or a business or live in a shelter like Dina Balzi.
We need somebody that understands for us.
In fact, Liu has no shortage of supporters. He can hardly walk a block without people coming up to congratulate him on the street, in restaurants, and even stopped in the middle of traffic.
Congratulations! Yay! I'm so proud of you.
It's about building relationships, not just doing events here and there, but just getting out and talking to people on a one-on-one basis.
Liu grew up in a Chinese-American family in Palo Alto. His father ran a restaurant. He went to Pali High, where he starred on the football team.
Growing up in Palo Alto, there were people who came from money. We had kids that showed up to high school on their 16th birthday, their brand new BMWs. That's not me.
Liu began his law enforcement career in East Palo Alto in 2000. He served on patrol and led the investigations unit through hard times when the city's per capita murder rate was still one of the highest in the nation. And it was during that time when Liu suffered the darkest day of his career, January 7th, 2006, the day his friend and fellow officer Richard May was murdered by a crime suspect after a foot pursuit right here on this street.
He got up to the top of the driveway, saw that Rich had him cornered, turned around with a gun, and shot him. My heart sank. The tears started flowing, and I started driving, faster than I should have, to try to get in here as fast as I could, thinking there's something I could do to bring him back.
From that day on, Liu vowed to put his best foot forward and make his mark on the department. He became a commander and now the city's 6th chief of police and the first to rise up through the department's own ranks. And although the violent crime rate is down since the mid-2000s, high-profile incidents like the fatal shooting at Jack Farrell Park last year are setbacks. Liu says the difference between now and 20 years ago is the cooperation of the community.
We had 5 homicides in 2022. They solved every single one of them, including that park shooting that made national news.
Although he doesn't like labels, he is breaking barriers, becoming the city's first Chinese-American chief. But his career choice was at first a disappointment to his parents.
When my dad was still alive, of course he wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer. But he said, if you're going to be a police officer, at least become the chief of police. So I was able to make that a reality for him, and hopefully he's looking down, and hopefully he's proud of me. Oh no, that's.
It's clear Chief Liu was the popular choice for East Palo Alto.
I appreciate you, buddy.
And as he faces the challenges ahead to prevent and solve crimes and make the streets safer, he hopes to turn that popularity into progress.
And Berkeley now has its first Asian American police chief. Jennifer Lewis is also the first woman and first openly gay chief in the city. She's been the interim chief since 2021.
And while there has been progress in giving the AAPI community a bigger voice in our Bay Area communities, there's still a long way to go. The Asian American Foundation, or TAF, found that nationally, 1 in 2 Asian Americans feels unsafe in the U.S., and nearly 80% of Asian Americans do not completely feel they belong or are accepted. Along with that, there continues to be alarming incidents of hate. The National Coalition Stop AAPI Hate says they've gotten more than 11,000 reports of hate incidents over the course of the pandemic. Some of these we've seen in disturbing videos showing elderly Asian Americans and businesses targeted, but not all of it is as visible.
Really what folks are facing is a lot of verbal harassment. 2/3 of the accounts describe racist slurs, sexist slurs being lodged at members of our community, and oftentimes in places that are open to the public. I mean, when we are shopping for groceries, when we're picking up prescriptions, pumping gas in our cars, taking public transit.
In San Jose, police just made several arrests and robberies targeting the AAPI community, oftentimes in shopping areas.
In Oakland's Chinatown, community members are walking the streets to help people feel safer. Lauren Toms has that story.
It's a deterrence by walking, and this group puts in the steps every day to keep their community safe.
I think the group they're sort of stewards of the community in a sense, in that, they make people feel safe, but they make people comfortable. That, and with all of the things that the community's been through over the last couple of years, I think it just relaxes everybody a bit.
Mark Lowe considers himself new to Oakland compared to his peers who have lived in the area for decades. But his passion for keeping Oakland's Chinatown safe is just as strong.
Wanting to do something to help the Chinese community. I was active in San Francisco where I grew up when I was a kid, and this was just like, a way to give back.
The Foot Patrol is sponsored by the city, and each day members of the East Bay Toisan Association gather for their walk. They're known for their orange uniforms and have established deep connections with Oakland's Chinatown's residents, business owners, and the Oakland police. It's these relationships and their visibility that have played part in thwarting crime and harassment in the area, an approach Mark believes is what makes all the difference for safer streets. And Mark says he hasn't seen a significant crime event while on patrol for months.
More trusted than, regular police officers. More stuff used to happen a year ago on our routes than happen now.
The group considers themselves an extra layer of eyes and ears in a community scarred by the spike in AAPI hate, and they're not afraid to step in. Mark says the group has thwarted harassment just by using their quick wit.
Most of our role as a deterrent is, having cameras, being able to call the police immediately, making noise.
And their tactics appear to work. Store owners say they feel safer when they see the orange jackets pass by.
Thank you for your volunteer patrol.
Okay.
We have a more customer count.
Okay.
More customer, more money. Appreciate your service.
And for Mark, the patrol is more than just protection. It's a deeper sense of community.
And a similar effort is happening in San Francisco's Sunset neighborhood after a series of burglaries at AAPI-owned businesses there. I spoke with the owner of a Chinese-Vietnamese restaurant on Noriega Avenue after thieves broke in, first going for the cash register, then taking off with a Buddha and jade statue. In response, community ambassadors now walk along Irving and Noriega in the outer Sunset. They're all retired police officers.
Still ahead, it's a tough topic to bring up, even when life deals you the worst of challenges.
You just don't really talk about your hardship so much, right? And you just, typically you kind of keep yourself down and you keep working.
See how one Bay Area AAPI family is bringing mental health to the table. Admitting you're struggling with mental health issues can be difficult for anyone, and studies show that Asian Americans are the least likely to seek mental health care than any other ethnicity. Our Itai Hod spent the day with one AAPI family that has made it their mission to change that.
No matter what, once a month, Nancy Lee and her family set the table at their home in Hillsborough, California for a special dinner. It's not a birthday or a holiday, but a new tradition that started after a tragedy that changed their lives forever.
I'm not thinking about anything else, so that's kind of the best part of it. It's just kind of relaxing, you just kind of focus on the food.
3 years ago, Nancy's husband Joseph was diagnosed with an incurable cancer. The news came just weeks after his own father passed away. All this as he and Nancy were in the middle of a divorce. In March of 2020, Joseph took his own life. Nancy never saw it coming.
I think all of those things, just kind of added up.
Making matters worse, because of the pandemic, there was no funeral and few people to talk to. And even if there were, Nancy says, she struggled to find the words.
I was just telling people he passed away. I didn't say how.
Growing up in a traditional Chinese household, she was taught not to complain and to just carry on. And that's exactly what she did.
You know, you just don't really talk about your hardship so much, right? And you just, typically you kind of keep yourself down and you keep working and you do your thing.
This here's my dad.
Her daughter Charlotte says she too kept her father's suicide a secret.
It was a shock. Like I really never thought about mental health before or suicide. Those were two foreign concepts to me.
Asian Americans are among the least likely to seek mental health care. In one study, less than 9% sought any type of mental health services, half that of the general population.
People aren't talking about it, so then when people actually are suffering from it, they don't want to acknowledge it.
Which is why a year ago, Charlotte decided to very publicly break her silence by making a short documentary about mental health called It's Time We Talk About It.
It's the way we break the stigma that keeps so many people, so many families from feeling like they have to keep their challenges to themselves.
It's why these days, Nancy, Charlotte, and her brother Daniel get together with their extended family at least once a month, where they can check up on each other and discuss whatever's on their mind.
With everything that's happened to, my family, we've gotten so much closer. I think my mom and I have, I'd say, become like best friends through all of this. I've gotten so much closer with my brother.
How was your day?
Establishing a new family tradition by creating a safe space to talk about life's ups and downs.
If you or someone you know is in a crisis, you can get help from the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988.
Retired Bay Area doctors are stepping up to fill a shortage of physicians nationwide, and one of them is also filling a big need in the Vietnamese community. Dr. Nguyen retired after more than 30 years, but now she's part of the Encore Physicians program, working part-time in community clinics. At the La Clinica San Antonio Neighborhood Health Center in Oakland, she continues her life's work. She's also become a go-to for her Vietnamese neighbors.
I'm very happy for she come here and help us.
And telling me that I'm the first Vietnamese provider, specialist that she sees, and she doesn't need a translator or interpreter. So there's no communication gap right there. And she was, so happy. That really made me happy.
Dr. Nguyen says she hopes her work in the clinic inspires other doctors to put their white coats on once again.
The pastime that's bonded the Japanese American community for decades now going through its own hoops, especially coming out of the pandemic.
And some of our friends got a sneak peek of Sharon's story at an AAPI reception here at CBS News Bay Area. Community leaders and community members joined us for some entertainment, good food, and good company. We'll be right back.
Leaders in the South Asian community around the Bay Area have worked to build a bridge between the countries they grew up in and the U.S., where many of their children were born. One way they're doing it is through the game of cricket. And now a local nonprofit is getting ready to take a team of young girls in the South Bay to compete in the UK.
It's got to be one of the best things because I feel like many people don't know that cricket is here in the first place. It's in Cupertino and all the Bay Area cities. You have such an easy time playing here.
Knowing there's cricket pitches over here, it's amazing, and so I'm really glad and really lucky.
Cities are recognizing that demographics are changing and requiring certain different kind of sport. Cricket is one of the fastest growing game in the country now.
The good part is these girls actually play with boys, so they don't really see the difference that they are girls, because for them it's a normal thing. Everybody comes together, everybody has a passion for sport.
I just feel like I'm learning so much about cricket and about my culture in general.
A Japanese-American sports tradition dates back more than 80 years.
It's been part of one East Bay family for 3 generations. Sharon Chin looks at how they hope to continue it for years to come.
For Stephen Morioka, basketball is about more than keeping score.
When I was growing up, that was just the thing to do. That was the social thing to do.
The sport part of his family's DNA for 3 generations.
All my friends played basketball. We all hung out together. We carried a basketball with us wherever we went.
Stephen is the president of Berkeley Otani Basketball, a recreational program his father, Tom Morioka, says has brought Japanese American families together since the 1930s. Basketball was a part of life. Japanese Americans even passed the time shooting hoops behind barbed wire in World War II internment camps. And after the war, Berkeley Otani played a key role bringing culture and stability to families resettling in neighborhoods.
They were isolated, and so they had to use their relationships with the people that they knew and grew up with and that had common issues, and that's how the community maintained itself.
80-year-old Tom joined the boys' team as a 10th grader in 1957. Many of the groups centered around churches like Berkeley Otani's sponsor, the Berkeley Higashi Honganji Buddhist Temple.
It was like a sense of belonging and a sense of community.
Like his father, Stephen also built lifelong connections in Berkeley Otani.
Those are friendships that exist today.
But Japanese American basketball leagues have shrunk since the 1970s, when Northern California had a few hundred teams. More families moved to the suburbs, church attendance dwindled, and more kids, especially young girls, chose other sports. Then COVID cleared the courts.
When the pandemic hit, all that stuff just got wiped out.
While some groups never came back, Berkeley Otani is up and running again with 12 teams. And Stephen's teenage son, Owen, returned to coach the program that's taught him leadership and sportsmanship.
It's really exciting. It's giving me a lot more fun, a lot more joy.
Yet something is still missing.
Participation, as far as players goes, is about the same right now. But the sense of community is still a little bit behind.
Stephen says it needs more volunteer board members to lead the program's front office and a return to large gatherings like rice cake making events and tournaments that build community. Berkeley Otani's bounce back will drive its move forward.
It's going to have to go through some changes, but I think it will be around.
I want it to continue.
I would definitely have my kids play basketball.
The Morioka family wants to give future generations a shot at the tradition that shaped its past.
Over the decades, some Japanese American basketball programs have dropped eligibility requirements that include temple attendance and/or ancestry. And Ryan, I know in doing this story, Sharon discovered something pretty cool, that you used to play Otani basketball.
Yeah, I played during my junior high, my high school years. So this story has a very special place in my heart, and there I am behind you. That's me, number 22.
You look the same, Ryan.
I'm scrawny and I had bad hair. And I thought I could play basketball, but I was not very good. I was not very athletic, and that's why I ended up going into broadcasting.
I was going to say, have you improved on your basketball skills?
I haven't played probably in 15 years.
Wow, but still a fan of the game.
I still love the game. I can't play the game.
That's okay. You look good suited up in a jersey.
I'm trying.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, up next, photos from the past coming to light decades later, how people are now carefully preserving this chapter in Japanese American history. Welcome back. As we celebrate Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we bring you a story about people who went out of their way to preserve their community history.
Yeah, several years ago, a cache of photos capturing the faces of Japanese Americans were discovered in the Northern California town of Marysville. Those photos were taken only a few months before those people were shipped off to internment camps, and now we're able to share their story thanks to one compassionate photographer who snapped those images 81 years ago and 2 local historians today who took it upon themselves to document an important moment in time.
As you look at the faces, you begin to wonder what was on the minds of these men, women, and even children. Their story can be found in a tiny storage room in Yuba City, carefully packed away in cardboard boxes.
The big reveal.
Where even today, David Reed,
these handsome young men,
one of the caretakers of the photos, still wonders what the faces are trying to tell him.
Yeah, you'd love to sit down and talk with these folks about their experiences. Many or most were American citizens, adding to the tragedy of what happened.
But who are they? And where did they come from? Terry Bush, who is an amateur behind the lens, knows the answer to those questions. Where inside his Los Altos home, he showed me boxes of old rolls of film that date back 80 years ago.
He really specialized in women and children. He really had a knack.
And a card catalog identifying,
might be pronounced Goichi Katayama,
every single person,
Mrs. Kawamoto, Japanese registration,
giving names to those black and white faces.
I feel like I'm a keeper of long-time ancient history in some ways.
The keeper of history, the keeper of his father's story, Clyde Bush, who in 1942 owned a tiny photography studio in the town of Marysville.
The story was an older Japanese guy came to his studio, which was in the basement of his parents' house.
Clyde snapped his photo and told him to come back in a few days. He had no idea what would happen next.
My dad's mom, early in the morning, came up and knocked on his door and yelled at him, "You need to get down here right now." Well, there's a line of Japanese from the back door at your studio out to the front street. Okay, he rushed down and started taking pictures. It went on for like 2 or 3 weeks. All of these Japanese were coming to his little tiny studio. He'd only started it a couple years earlier. Toward the end, he asked one of the other Japanese gentlemen, "Well, why is everyone coming to my studio?" He said, "Well, no one else would either take our pictures, treat us decent, but you did all of those things. You were friendly, you were nice." He realized that, okay, maybe I did something good by just being me.
Through the lens of his camera, Clyde Bush offering a simple act of kindness at a time when local Japanese Americans would need every bit of empathy. In 1941, with the bombing of Pearl Harbor by Imperial Japan, the U.S. entered World War II. President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, ordering 120,000 Japanese Americans living on the West Coast into internment camps, including the families in these photos.
Again, it's assumed they were for ID. Since there were so many in the same time frame, it's assumed that it was related to some requirement to have identification as part of the internment camp experience.
Sue Sender-Moyers is the unofficial historian of Yuba County.
It took a while for us to stretch these out. I mean, you've seen how crinkled those are.
And 14 years ago, it was Clyde Bush's wife, Myrtle, who gave her the original rolls of film. And Sue immediately realized she had stumbled onto something important.
I worried that I would be able to do justice to it. I'm just one small person that came upon this treasure trove of history, and I wanted to get it to the right place.
That's when she reached out to David Reed, executive director of Yuba Sutter Arts in Marysville, where 5 years ago, together, they brought the photos to life.
Seeing them all en masse like that was quite an experience.
Putting 100 of them on display.
We worked for weeks curating the collection, getting the enlargements created, and then hanging them on the wall of our gallery in Marysville, and it's overwhelming. I mean, I still get emotional just thinking about it, and seeing those faces and the uncertainty and everything else that they must have experienced.
And the photos literally grew into something much bigger. Just outside of town, Sue and David led the charge to give the people in the photos and their story a permanent home.
So many things happened in this area. People driving by say, "What happened here?"
The pictures now flank the Arboga Assembly Center Memorial Park, a former migrant camp, the site where the local Japanese Americans were rounded up and imprisoned before the government shipped them off to internment camps.
Their stories. I just think every person here has a story about what they went through, what they lived through, and I try to put myself in that position, what would I have done if that happened to me and my children and my home and my belongings?
Discrimination is certainly still with us today on many, many levels. And maybe there's a lesson in that regard to be learned here.
Lessons from people who lived in the community. Their stories captured through the kindness of a camera. The faces of the past, now never to be forgotten.
The Arboga Assembly Center Memorial Park just sits outside of Marysville in the town of Olivehurst. And as far as we know, this is the first time these photos have been presented outside of Yuba County. Our goal is to connect the people in those photos with their family descendants who, well, might be living here in the Bay Area. We would love to hear from you. And we have posted more than 80 of those photos, the ones where we at least had a last name, on our website at kpix.com. Filipino-American students at San Jose State University are demanding changes to a farm worker monument that sits on campus.
And the monument doesn't mention Filipino workers, even though they were the first to walk out of the vineyards and strike for better wages and working conditions.
Len Ramirez introduces us to one former farm worker who says it's time for Filipinos to be recognized.
Unlike most of the kids he grew up with in San Jose, 91-year-old Robert Ragsack never looked forward to the day when school would let out in June.
Summertime came, didn't everybody say, oh, we're going to get out of school, we have summer, we're going to go out and do a whole lot of fun things. My brother and I didn't like it because that meant we had to go work in the fields.
Robert, his brother, and father were some of the thousands of Filipino farm workers who harvested crops throughout California beginning in the 1920s.
We picked, string beans, squash, cucumbers, tomatoes. And by the way, that was 6 to 6 every day, except for Sunday.
These farm workers, known as Manongs, played a crucial role in the early days of the farm worker movement right alongside Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. And although they endured anti-Asian hate and violence, the Manong farm workers have been all but forgotten.
What the Filipinos did in working in the harvest, or even having families whose kids, like me, went to college and became part of the American mainstream, that kind of story doesn't make headlines, I guess.
We are the students for Filipino farm workers.
But that could be about to change thanks to a new generation of Filipino-American students at San Jose State University. They protested the lack of recognition in front of a monument to farm workers on campus.
Incredibly, there is no reference to the Filipino farm workers present on this arc.
Robert attended the protest and, as a former farm worker, had even stronger words.
It's awesome arch, but it's a damn insult.
The monument was installed in 2008 and includes large mosaics of farm workers and portraits of Chavez, Huerta, and Mahatma Gandhi, who inspired the movement's nonviolent ethos.
In no way did students want to disregard the contributions of Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, or the many Chicano farm workers behind this movement. But we wanted Filipino-American farm workers to be recognized.
The students are demanding the university also build a tribute to their leaders like Larry Itliong, who first organized the Delano grape strike in 1965. Later, Filipinos and Mexican Americans came together to form the United Farm Workers Union, or UFW. Chavez supporters are backing the students.
I believe that anytime we tell the farm worker story, it is incomplete without adding the story of the Filipino farm workers.
The students now have a meeting with the university's president to discuss ideas to recognize Filipino farm workers.
The students have brought a compelling case to our student affairs folks, and we're willing to talk about it.
But as Robert shows us, the city of San Jose is already one step ahead. Last year, the city opened Delano Manongs Park in Robert's own Berryessa neighborhood. It includes a marker with words and photos about Filipino farm workers.
If not for Larry Itliong, there would not be, I believe, there would not be a United Farm Workers.
Itliong passed away in 1977, but some of the elder Filipino farm workers like Robert are still here to bear witness and help tell the whole story of the California farm worker movement.
Soon after you drive through the gate into San Francisco's Chinatown, there they are, the iconic red lanterns above. A lot of them were destroyed in our winter storms, but members of the community are working to make sure they're back soon, better than ever.
You can tell that the hail has really done some damage here.
Chinatown's famous lanterns that have dressed up Grand Avenue for the last 10 years took a beating during recent storms. They were no match against the hail, heavy rain, and strong winds. Mother Nature left them in such bad shape, an entire block of lanterns had to be taken down. Many that are left are torn.
Pretty heartbroken, actually, and a lot of the store owners afterward asked how we can install new lanterns.
Lanterns symbolized love and prosperity. Jenny Chan, Associate Director of the Chinatown Merchants Association, has partnered with the nonprofit Be Chinatown to launch a fundraising effort for 3 blocks of new lanterns. Co-founder Lily Lowe said they're more than just a photo op.
I feel safe because we and beauty of symbolism of Chinatown, and without the lantern, I feel like Chinatown is. There's no color.
Actually, a lot of people come to Chinatown, take photos with the lanterns, and then they tag us in it. It helps us a lot with SF tourism because people look at Instagram and then they figure out where to go.
In fact, during our interview, we saw people doing just that, taking photos with the lanterns in the background. Each string of lanterns costs about $1,000, including labor and materials. This time around, they plan to hire contractors to properly install each string and to improve its lifespan.
This is something new and challenging for us, but we're going to find an innovative way to really secure it with better bracket for the new lanterns. And also, if we over fundraise our amount, we're also going to install lanterns on the 500 block of Grand Avenue, since the store owners, they're always complain about safety.
Its goal is $50,000. The 2 groups are thankful for the outpouring of support so far. They hope they can replace all the lanterns before the summer tourist season.
So far, more than 250 donors have contributed toward that $50,000 goal. Alaska Airlines pledged to match donations up to $20,000.
Up next, it's a lot more than just getting from point A to point B. The deeper meaning behind what is known as the banh mi bus. For decades, a small but scrappy bus line has been shuttling many in the Vietnamese community between 2 of its biggest hubs, San Jose here in Northern California and Westminster in Orange County, known as Little Saigon. Our Itai Ha takes us on a memorable ride into the past.
Even the thought of sitting on a bus for more than 8 hours is daunting for most people. But for many in the Vietnamese community, getting on board the banh mi line is more than just a bumpy ride.
I do feel like I'm at home, like that. Like even the landscape here, I feel like we're not on the countryside.
Normally, Raimi Lei, a resident of Orange County, flies to San Jose to visit her aunt. But this time, she decided to take the bus along with her 63-year-old grandmother.
We talk whole 8 hours, surely because we haven't been on vacation together that long, so that's a quality time together with family.
For the last 27 years, this bus has become a lifeline for people like Raimi's grandmother, connecting 2 of America's largest Vietnamese hubs, San Jose in the north and Westminster in Orange County in the south.
This bus is the most well-known brand that we know in Vietnamese community.
The 400-mile ride along Interstate 5 is a popular fixture among Vietnamese Americans looking for an inexpensive and, most importantly, familiar way to travel. Like many of its passengers, Raimi's grandmother, Hung Lei, doesn't speak English. Taking the bus with other Vietnamese people, she says, has been a godsend.
She feels like more family because we speak the same language.
It all started in the late 1990s when the company's founder noticed members of the community were having difficulty navigating their way through airports. Soon, he began shuttling people between north and south. The bus line, officially called Say Dan Hoang, used to come with a free meal, an iconic Vietnamese sub called banh mi. The sandwiches were such a part of the trip that over the years, the bus simply became known as the banh mi line.
That's the easy food to eat on the seat, you know. You cannot have a bowl of noodles.
Since COVID, it's bring your own sandwich. The price of a ticket, $50, about a quarter of what it would cost to fly. For Ramey's grandmother, the selling point is not having to go through airport security.
As you say, living in America, people are all busy. You just go to work and go home. You barely have time to talk to each other. So this is like the perfect time, very good quality time to like sit together and talk.
At the end of the day, for many of the passengers, the banh mi line is an easy, affordable way to travel, while also getting a little taste of home.
Coming up, he's not a player, but he's always courtside for the Warriors.
What's up, Dub Nation? Let me hear my Dub Nation Warrior fans in the house.
How Franco Finn uses his role as hype man to represent more than just the team.
The hype man for the Golden State Warriors has been busy representing Dub Nation for 2 decades.
He's also proudly representing his Filipino heritage and family every time he takes the mic.
Dub Nation, are you ready?
What a powerhouse voice. Franco Finn has been introducing the Golden State Warriors for 20 years. He got his love of basketball from his mom, who immigrated to the U.S. from the Philippines. Now he's courtside for every game, and he credits the Warriors for helping him represent.
I belong. I made it. I represent a lot, not just the Bay Area and Dub Nation, but my Filipino culture. This symbolizes a lot because the Warriors were the first team to really acknowledge that there's a Filipino fan base, and it started #1 here in the 70s. Basketball has been so global, not only around the world in Asia, but the Philippines. You know, there's Manny Pacquiao, and there's basketball.
An Asian American family-owned flower shop celebrates its 90th birthday this year. We'll introduce you to its 90-plus-year-old matriarch coming up.
Drum beats fill up the studio in Daly City as a Tahitian dance group gets ready to share their art form with the community.
To be able to create this space and have all of these people come together of all ethnic backgrounds, we not only have Asian Pacific Islander, we have all ethnicities come to celebrate this culture.
Hui Tarava is just one of several Bay Area groups preparing for the Tahiti Fete competition in San Jose in June. If you've driven along El Camino Real in San Mateo, you've probably seen the sign.
Yeah, this Asian American-run flower shop celebrates its 90th birthday this year. Sharon Chin visited its matriarch and learned about the business that started at the height of the Depression.
Well, this is a happy place, and then flowers is always happy.
Mamie Leung is well into her 90s, but still has a hand in shaping her family's San Mateo business.
I love to come here and help out a little bit, and then I don't make the big things. I make things like this and small things.
Her imprint is anything but small. She's helped keep Awesam Floral rooted in 3 generations.
And then we treat everybody like a family.
Mamie's father-in-law, Gordon Leong, and his father, Sam Shun, opened Awesam in 1933. It's bloomed over the decades despite some early setbacks. Mamie's son, Steve Leung, says as Asian American business owners, they encountered resistance, then unexpected friendship while trying to purchase its signature lot on El Camino Real in the 1930s.
The owner of the property chose not to sell to my grandfather. But then what happened was that the farmer that was next to us across the street, he was Italian. He said, no problem, you give me the money, I'll purchase the property for you, and I'll transfer it over to you.
When you want to buy something and you can't, and you got the money, it's sort of sad.
And as one of the first Asian families to plant themselves in Belmont, a neighbor apparently complained to immigration and Mamie had to prove her citizenship.
And my mom said, well, here's my driver's license. And they said, that's not enough. Where were you born? My mom was saying, I was born in Fresno. They said, "Where's your birth certificate?"
Everybody have a house, a little house.
Mamie persevered in more ways than one. When her husband Art and his siblings passed away in the 1980s, she stepped in with her kids to keep the shop going. And today, she and Art's 4 adult children run AAPI. The store's longevity, she says, stems from its innovative designs, fresh flowers, and shift to online orders. Generations of loyal customers have included high society and celebrities from Shirley Temple to Oprah, whose thank you note is framed. Mamie's most recent thrill when the Warriors' Stephen Curry visited to highlight small businesses bouncing back from the pandemic.
He's my only favorite. I don't have any favorite, and I don't like LeBron James.
This spunky matriarch remains the glue that binds the family and store together. She comes to work on busy holidays.
But it's nice to see everybody here, you know.
And bears her own brand of creativity.
I make sandwiches, you know, and I put broccoli, cucumbers, and string bean. I don't know whether they like it or not, but they say they like it. It's free.
She hosts Sunday family dinners on her terms.
When they bring the dog, they gotta vacuum. And then they gotta wash the dishes and put it away.
Mamie keeps her kids close, and that keeps her going.
When everybody, my kids, are okay, I'm happy.
Come on. Together, they're a picture of happiness, celebrating a family and a floral shop that's blossomed for 90 years.
Mamie's father-in-law, Gordon Leung, named Sam in honor of his father, Sam. Means sir in Chinese. Well, the store's first sale was, get this, Ryan, 2 bunches of chrysanthemums for 35 cents in 1933.
That is very cheap, 35 cents. You can't get anything for 35 cents nowadays.
Nothing. I can't think of anything.
Yeah. So, over the course of this hour, we brought you a small sampling of Asian American and Pacific Islander stories from all across the region. They are stories that define us.
And if you'd like to share or watch any of them again, check out kpix.com. We thank you so much for joining us in our celebration of roots and resilience here on CBS News Bay Area. And Ryan, it was great to be here with you.
Always an honor to be with Betty Yu.
And happy AAPI month.